wanted to kind of create this video as an addendum to my previous ramblings about politics and such, because I figure it would create a better sense for people to understand what I'm talking about when they know where I'm coming from. So I've got obviously the most the most accurate reading of someone's politics, the Polkamp test, and obviously this is the most accurate sense someone can get with how they represent themselves politically, right? Trust me. Yeah, you can tell that this is a trusted source with the weird AI Einstein. But okay. English. What is that flag? That's an odd flag for like Arabs. Okay. So I'll be reading over some of these when it is striking to me, and how they relate to my thing. So if economic like globalization and how it should serve. Obviously, I'm not a very big corporation guy, so I'm going to say strongly agree on that. Whether it was right or wrong, I disagree on that. But nationalism to me sometimes is very silly. It's foolish to be proud of it. I disagree with that, though. I feel like if you like your country, you should be proud that you're lucky enough to be born in it, right? Our race has many superior qualities. I feel like this is just, maybe not my race, but I feel like this is just true, that some are just being better than others, right? I can get into that later, though. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I agree with that. Yeah. This is correct, I believe, because international law is like number one cultural definer, and if you defy that, then usually that will be a good thing, honestly. Obviously there's worrying fusion of information and entertainment. That's easy. Economy divided more by class. I strongly agree with this. Just look at Latin America. Most of those guys are the very, very samey race-wise, or at least the same denominations of race. So most of the time their issues are just because they want to be more rich than the other guy. Unemployment, I disagree with that. I feel like the more people that have jobs, the more unemployment will just go down by proxy. Inflation. Because corporations, they require a lot of regulation, actually. Is a fundamentally good idea. Fundamentally, yes. In process, it may not be that well off, but the fear of the market, the fear of the people is a fundamentally terrible idea, because when you have a free market with no restrictions, then you have human zoos and the such. You'll get corporations trying to profit literally off of anything. Would you like a 30-minute subscription to clean air? Speaking of which, that is a sad reflection. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Some should, but there should always be land that is just kept as its own. And even in a culture that does not promote private ownership of land, the government then owns that land, and then they cultivate it. So, either way, someone's owning that land. who simply manipulate money and contribute. Yeah, that's very unfortunate. I agree with that. Protectionism is necessary sometimes. If you dilute your market with a lot of value that it does not need, then it's just going to become unvaluable. Company should be delivered. No. The social responsibility of a company should be not to exist. No, I feel like everybody should have access to higher standards of medical care, regardless of how much money you have. Agree, strongly agree with that. A genuine free market requires restrictions of the ability. Predator multinationals, yeah, obviously. Monopolies are bad. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. I feel like there's a lot of varying cases on that. All authority should be questioned. The authority of God shouldn't be questioned, so the eye for an eye, in a sense. It should not be expected to prop up any theaters and museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I strongly disagree with that. I feel like museums and theaters are expressions of art and culture that are usually not all too harmful, because a lot of the times, especially with theaters, they'll go against the norms of culture and create a dialogue around that. But I suppose museums will be always used to reinforce it, but they are cool, so schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I disagree with that. I feel like even if the educational industry is shoving a lot of shit down your throat you don't need, you still need like basic math. There's a lot of stuff in there that you should be learning, you know, still. So it's because, yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. I strongly agree with that, actually. Different people with different cultures should be kept to their own cultures, to not create an incongruence and completely destroy their sense of wealth and their sense of self, because they're trying to integrate in a culture that they can't. I agree with this too. It's natural for children to keep. Yeah, this is. I mean, depends on the secret. I'll say disagree, because usually when you're keeping a secret from your parents, it's probably going to lead to some shit later. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. I agree with that. I feel like most people do. Function of schooling should be to equip the future generations. I feel like it should more rather be to educate the people, not just help them find jobs. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. I'm very strongly in agreement with that. Unfortunately, I will have to agree with this. I know I'm very anti-culture in this regard, but it's just kind of a sad fact that children, especially if you'd like to get anywhere within the world, you will have to learn how to just deal with the fact that the world doesn't want you, you know? I'm a savage. They're only different cultures. I don't believe any of us are civilized. There are those who are able to work and refuse the... Yeah, I mean, I agree with this. There's a lot to be said about like rejecting work as like a neat in protest of culture, but when you take that opportunity to reject and protest culture, you should also be very aware of the fact that you are not going to get support from it. Thankfully, some social programs do exist, so you know these people who do that aren't just like killed, but you know, when you're troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I don't really know how to do that, and I don't believe that'd be very helpful. It's like cognitive behavioral therapy, where you just kind of like delude yourself into thinking things are right. But I suppose, I mean, it does help, right? But it's just delusional. Yeah, I strongly agree with this. As the son of a first generation of immigrant, the individual who is the first generation immigrant cannot and will not integrate. So Obviously, no. Should receive public funding. I disagree with this. It's simple to have broadcasting institutions be funded publicly. Being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Yeah, I mean, my own experience, yeah. Significant advantage of, yeah. Delay the process in a democratic political system. It's more as though anything will get done, because in a democratic political system you'll have filibustering that will go on for fucking months, and then you'll have to make every single bill some sort of bipartisan nightmare, you know. Only wrongdoers need to be worried. In some degree, right? To some sense, I do agree with that. But at the same time, it's like, you think like only wrongdoers should be worried, and then you just constantly shift the goalposts onto what wrongdoing is, you know? But it is kind of easy to just not get in trouble. Just don't do something wrong. Should be an option. Death penalty should be an option. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it should be a choice, actually. If somebody just wants to fucking die in prison, they should just be allowed to. So always have people above to be obeyed and people to be commanded. Unfortunately, yeah, this is true. I'm not so sure about the civilized point, but in any culture, there are people that are in control and people that aren't, so shouldn't be considered at all. If it doesn't represent anything, but most abstract art will represent something. So if there is truly some sort of abstract art that doesn't represent anything, then it shouldn't be considered at all, because like, what do you mean? Is that just like a scrapped project? Then that still represents something. All art represents something. But in the qualms of this question, abstract art that doesn't represent anything, if it, you know, punish it should be more important than rehabilitation. I feel like, I mean, yeah, right, unfortunately, yeah. Again, a lot of these are unfortunate agreements, because while in theory rehabilitation would be the goal, when you go soft on a criminal, they will probably just recommit, and they'll just, you know, they'll say, oh, well, that experience wasn't all too bad. I don't really fear it anymore, so I'll just do it again. This is true too. I mean, you get people who like rape 50 babies, and, you know, I don't know about rehabilitating those people. I disagree with this. The business person and the manufacturer are not more important than the writer and the artist. I feel like they should have equal place within culture, but, you know, first duty is to be homemakers, yeah. Women are not too good at anything else other than that, unfortunately. But we should heed the warnings of climate science, that growth is detrimental. Yes, yes, please. Our world is dying, and it's technology's fault. Making peace with the establishment. Yeah, I mean, it is mature to make peace with how the world runs, but I will never do that because I'm immature. Astrology accurately. Disagree. Agree. Charity is better than social security as a means of no. I mean, no, that's just untrue. Some people are naturally unlucky. Yeah, I agree with that. Some people I'm very superstitious in that regard. Some people are like, just bad. A child school instills religious values. I agree with that. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly agree. Same-sex couple in 11 should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. No. If you are a same-sex couple, you have forfeited the right to a child, and that is something you need to accept as a same-sex couple. Pornography is the devil. It is evil in every sense. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. But then that would lead to moral degradation from people who are doing it within their own bedrooms, and that would grow into people doing it within the streets. So I disagree with that. No one can feel